So we will see about useEffect React hook. So first to understand why useEffect. Okay, why you need this useEffect React hook? As you know, necessity of mother of invention. So what made this useEffect in functional component? Because I assume that you know that the lifecycle hooks methods, lifecycle methods are available only for class components. It is not available for functional components. So functional components cannot use those functionalities. So because of lifecycle methods, yeah, I will just give you a heads up on lifecycle methods. Okay, the lifecycle methods are, these are the lifecycle methods which are present in React class components. So the lifecycle methods, if you see, there are 6 lifecycle methods. So by using this methods, if you have this inside your class component, it will be called by React at that particular moment of the component. That is, when the components get mounted, the component did mount will call. Before it gets mounted, the component will mount will get called. And likewise, component will receive props will get called when the component receives some properties. And should component update will make you decide whether the component should update or not. Okay, and component did update after the component updates, and component will unmount will get called when the component is going to get unmounted. So these are the functionalities you can do in a functional class component in React. That is, you can have a functionality which has to run only after the component mounts, or when the components unmounts you want a functionality, and when the component updates you want a functionality using component did update. So these functionalities were not possible to be done in a functional component. The functional component always had to rely on class component. So with the introduction of React hooks, what they brought out, so they brought out a lifecycle, they brought a React hook, useEffect React hook, by which these are possible in functional components also. Whatever you were able to achieve using lifecycle methods in a class component could be done using useEffect in functional components as well. Okay. So as I told you, so useEffect is, as the name says, it is a effect of a render or update. That's why the name as useEffect. So from the effect of a render or update, you want to do some functionalities. Like once the component updates, on the component mounts, I want to do a functionality like I will call to the server. So that's why the name useEffect. Effect of a render of update. So the useEffect hook is called to be a combined effect of component did mount, did update, and component will unmount. I told you did mount will get called when the component mounts. Did update will get called when the component updates, and the component will unmount will get called when the component gets destroyed or unmounted. Okay. So these are the I have just described what are the functionalities you achieved because of lifecycle methods in a class component. We will see each one of them, each one by one, how we can achieve the same functionality using useEffect in case of React hook, that is useEffect React hook. Once we complete all the 4 functionalities what I have listed down, you will be we will see a common use case how you can use useEffect. Okay, so the first functionality is run on every update. For every update you want to run something, maybe it can be a log, you want to see a log which gets printed for every update. Okay, a simple use case. So let's go to our VS Code. So this is our VS Code. Right now it has a functionality. If I go to the browser, you can see that it has a functionality to just display a input button. Okay, this I have done using useState. So this in this input button I am just trying to I have used useState, and I am able to input whatever values I want into this input button, input element. Okay. Now let us use useEffect. Okay. So to use useEffect, you have to put useEffect, get it auto imported from React, and whatever you have to write a function inside where you write the functionality what should happen for a effect of render or update. Okay, maybe I'm saying that I want to call console log print, maybe print sample or something on every render. Okay. So when you have it like this, right, you write just a statement without you are not writing anything here. So this statement now will execute on every render. Whenever this component gets re-rendered, this this particular console log will happen because for every render. Okay, so when the render will happen whenever somebody enters some value in this input element, because we have used useState. If you are not sure about useState, I will recommend you to see my previous session on useState. Okay, so whenever the state changes, this component will be re-rendered. So whenever the component gets re-rendered, this useEffect will happen. Okay, so this happens when you don't put any put anything here. You don't put it like this. When you don't put it like this, it will happen on every re-render. We can just go to the browser and check that. Okay. So let me run it now. Okay, let me clear it. So whenever I type some element here, the state is going to change. So we should be seeing that whatever our console logs. You are able to see that console log. So every time the component re-renders, this will happen. This whatever you put inside the useEffect, that functionality will get executed. So we have done this to execute the first step. Uh, run on every render. That's what we try to do it now. Run on every render. Okay. And next use cases, next functionality is to run on component mount only. So component mount happens only once. Okay, when the component gets added to the DOM. So if I want to run a functionality only when the component gets mounted, what I need to do? So for that, what you need to do is you have to go here, add just like this. You are actually saying that I have no dependencies. So run only on the component only when the component mounts. Okay, this is similar to putting this functionality in component did mount. Okay, so we are supposed to put the dependencies here, saying when this dependency change, you have to call this function. Right now I am saying I have no dependencies. Okay, so it will run only on component mount. Only when the component mounts, it will happen. Even if the value change, any value changes here, it will not affect this. It will not execute this statement because I have told it no dependencies. So let me check it now whether it happens. So now I will clear it. Okay, so if we rerun it, it should run once. So it ran once. Okay, now even if I change, it will not run. You are able to see we are not seeing that statement anymore because I have told it no dependency. So run it only once. So this statement will never execute even if the state changes, even if the component re-renders. the component re-renders because of the state change, the input state which we have used via the use state, because from use state we are getting a state that we have used in the input state, and we are changing the state by using on change, which sets the set input state. Okay, now we have done the next requirement for our next functionality or run on component mount, and the next functionality which was achieved by lifecycle methods was to decide whether a update need to happen. This we decide using component should component update. So there we can say if this value changes, don't update. We can return a false boolean, return false. So in that case the component update will not happen. So that also we can do it using on effect. Okay, use effect we can do it. Okay, let me create one another state. Okay, to make you understand this, I'm creating one more state. Okay, let me let it be ABC or something. So let it be input state 2 and set input state 2, and I will just copy this. I'm creating one more input element with this state. Okay, so let it be input state 2 here, and let it set input state 2. Okay, so now I have created another input element. So now I want to say to use effect that this functionality should happen only when the input state 2 changes. If somebody types in this input element, then you do this functionality, execute this line. If the input state 1, this input changes, you don't do anything, you don't execute this line. For that, what you have to do, you say that this use effect is dependent on only input state 2. Okay, now I can also create a label here so that it is understandable. So I can say input 1. Okay, and likewise this is input 2. Okay, so now what I'm saying is, to use effect, you should execute this functionality only when the input state 2 changes. You should not execute this functionality when input state 1 changes or anything else changes, you don't execute. Okay, so let me check it in the browser now whether it works. Go to the browser. So now we are seeing two input elements. Okay, we can actually put it in a div so that it comes down. Okay, so now it is more understandable, I think so. Maybe. So now I have two input. Now I've added a functionality in useEffect that you do the change, you execute that line console log only when the input 2 changes. Okay, let me do it. Now you can see whenever I change input 2, this print sample on every render is happening, right? So it is doing correctly. Now let us check if I change input 1 whether it is happening. So you can see that is not never getting printed. Can understand? So this is how we can control whether a use effect functionality, whatever you put inside the use effect, should run on which change. On maybe input state 1 changes, you don't execute my functionality. If input state 2 changes, then only you execute this functionality. So you can control a functionality from happening in functional component. Okay, So this is how it is achieved using useEffect. Now run on component unmount. Okay, this is more interesting. So when you want to run a functionality on unmount, okay, what you have to do is in useEffect you have to return that item. So this functionality, what will do is this functionality, okay, this functionality will run when next cycle of useEffect. That is, maybe I put a console log. I will say cleanup. You can use it for cleanup. So this functionality, this return, this function, you have to return it to useEffect. So this functionality will happen before the useEffect, the next cycle of useEffect starts, and it will also happen when the component unmounts. So in both the cases it will happen. Now whenever the input state 2 changes, this useEffect functionality will happen, right? So for every new cycle of useEffect running the functionality, it will run the functionality which was returned in the previous cycle. Okay, you're understanding? So when a new cycle of useEffect starts, it will execute the whatever was returned in the previous cycle. Okay, and this also will get executed when the component unmounts. Okay, we can see it in action. So this should execute every time the useEffect this functionality happens. Executes this functionality, whatever you put inside this. So let us check in our thing. So whenever I type something, you can see whenever I type something, it runs the cleanup of the previous cycle, right? Okay, and this will also happen, cleanup will happen when the component unmounts also. When this component unmounts, that also will happen. The use case the use case which will which is prompt for this is like when you use a set timeout, right? You have several set timeouts. You can use this to clear the interval. Maybe the timeout has exceeded. You can use this cleanup for clearing the timeout of the previous cycle. Okay, you understand? Every time you do a set timeout for every useEffect cycle, so when the new use set timeout starts, you can use this for clearing the set timeout of the previous cycle. Cycle in the sense the previous time the useEffect ran. Okay. Okay. This is how I think I covered all the cases. These are the 4 cases. Now the common use case why we use useEffect. The useEffect we mostly use for making calls to the server. Maybe you have a filter. Whenever the filter the user changes the filter, it has to go and call the server. So in this case, what I will do, I will remove this input 2. Input 2, and I will change it as search. Okay, whatever. So what I will do in this useEffect, instead of console log, I will put axios. You have to import this axios as well. Maybe you can import. So here I do a get to my local node server. So you need not know that node server simply returns a employees list. Okay, I'm not going inside the node server. It just understand that this node server returns a employees list. I'm using Axios to retrieve that list. So this will return a then. So inside the then you can actually, you will get a response here. You can actually print the response. Response.data. Okay. So this is one of the common use case where we will use useEffect, that I go to the backend and receive the response.data. And one other thing I want to do is this useEffect, the call to the server should happen whenever the input state one changes. Input state changes. The input state is for this input element. Okay. Remove this. Whenever the user changes the search, okay, it has to go to the server with the search parameter, right? So that is a common use case for useEffect. So whenever the input state changes, the input state will get changed whenever the user changes the value in the input element. So this useEffect will be called to go to the server with the search parameter to get the response, and using the response we will actually render that response on the UI screen. Okay, so let's see this example. Now I have searched something. So you can see whenever the user types something on the search, it goes to the server and gets the employee list. Okay, you're able to see. So this is one of the common use case where we use useEffect. Okay, hope this is clear. UseEffect is clear why we use that. So to summarize, so useEffect, as the name says, it is to handle the effect of a render or update. Okay, so for bringing this functionality, when you want to do in a functional component, you want to do some functionality on render or update, or you want to do a particular functionality on only when a particular state changes, or you want to do a cleanup when the component unmounts, or on every cycle I want to do a cleanup. So in all these cases the useEffect can be used. And we also saw a common use case where we went to the server and fetched the data. We did this every time the input state, the filter search element changed. Okay, that is the search element. The search element changed, the input value changed, we went to the server and fetched the data and printed the data. Okay. Hope you understood.